what Jeremy said too, and you, with your responsibility and leadership, reminds me a lot of him. Like the word kept coming to my mind when you're sharing that is like a dependent leader. Like you're a leader, like God's equipped you, and Jeremy, we're talking about my husband, the same like that. It's like you have these leadership, high in responsibility, and you feel a calling, but also like, when do I let go and trust the Lord and depend on the Lord, which we need to depend on all the time. And so when Jeremy said that to you, he shared that with me too. Is like a lot of us, we want all our ducks in a row. We want to see the big picture. We want to make sure this is going to work because we don't want to fail, and we want to do it well. But what if God caused us to fail? Like what if He had? And and I think like that's really hard because it causes us to be dependent on Him and trust God, not knowing. Okay, you're calling us to do what? Like that doesn't make sense. Like we don't see the end of that. Like so. A lot of what, and he would have, if he's here, he would have shared too, a lot of, I don't know if he was taught this or if this was just something ingrained in him, is that like you have to have it all figured out before you take the step. And a lot of times God is like, no, I just want you to trust me. And that's something
faith.
Yeah, and that's what he keeps saying to us over and over again. It's like, just trust me. Just trust me. And it almost feels like you're not being responsible. Like it's
totally.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Take this risk. You want me to do what?
Totally.
I know, and I feel like you are giving such a short version of this wilderness. Like I've been with you and Meg through this, and it's been brutal. Like, but I appreciate how when we ask you guys how you're doing, you're so honest. Maybe I think you're honest. You may not be. You may be like softening it. But I don't know. I'm like, oh, that's pretty honest. But I love it because. When you talk about, thoughts of suicide, like we've had a friend do that a year this month. I'm not going to cry about it. And so I think, like when you say that, I'm so glad you say that. I remember the first time you said that to me, and I was like, ugh. And it was probably a month after our friend died. And I just thought, like, the enemy wants to destroy us.
Yeah.
And like he hates us, and I think just everybody's heard Megan's story, but when we get you want to share your story, like just how God brought you guys to Him, and it was like this mountaintop moment, which a lot of wilderness, going into wilderness, you have that mountaintop, like Jesus gets baptized and he's anointed with the Spirit, and then the Spirit leads him into this wilderness. And a lot of times, I don't know, at least for believers, it's like we think we have these mountaintop moments, like, man, this is great, I love this.
I'm going to stay up there.
Yeah. And then, like, you have us walking through what?
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think, okay, what am I doing wrong? And it's not the case. I mean, like, even that was very interesting and eye-opening to me, is just studying the wilderness. Of like, okay, the Spirit led Jesus into the wilderness, and, and I don't know, I know that it's been a long wilderness season for you guys, and I'm thankful that God's bigger and that you're here. And even
me too.
To share that. And what would you, I heard some things, but I want to see what you're going to say. Like, what would you say to anybody walking in a wilderness season like this, or any wilderness? Like, what would you say are some things that helped you, that you encouraged them to do or reach out? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think that like secrets make me sick, and so like if there's something that's rolling around in my head, the longer it rolls around in my head, the more like perverted it gets by like the end. I don't remember things accurately, but I play them back in my head a lot. And I think every time I play them back in my head, I'm more and more the victim of that particular situation. And I think that's the way that the enemy like lies to me and accuses. And so I think it's really important that I reach out to, like I really think that support groups, support networks, and people are just critical. Because at any time, there's probably 4 or 5 guys like Mulligan and Ferguson and Joey and a couple other guys that I can just say like, hey, this is going through my head right now, and like, and what they'll either be like, well, maybe that's legitimate, but most of the time they're like, yeah, that's kind of cuckoo birds, and we need to talk about that. And so like, the other thing that happens is if I like compose a text to say, I'm thinking about doing this. This is what's going on in my head right now, and tell me what you think about it. The moment I press send, the power is gone. Because as soon as I've aired that, yeah, I'm thinking about buying a Corvette or something, you know, like I'm like, oh, I don't have to. I'm not burdened by that anymore. Like I've just dragged that just into the light, and like the light just kills it. Yeah. And if I keep things like that, like sins of, you know, like I'm kind of like if it feels good, I'm gonna try to do it, right? I'm kind of essentialist, right? Like I like food. I will eat my way to comfort. I like buying things. It makes me feel better, but like it's not the provision that God has for me, you know. So like like when I'm like, hey, I'm gonna, you know, like whatever, and I share that with, and I know like there's this small voice in my head that says, why don't you talk about that first, you know? And so like I'll talk about that first, and then the power of like that God-shaped hole that's empty in my soul is just filled, you know, not with some stuff or some things or some kind of experience or some provision that I've made, but rather a provision that God has made. And it's much more filling to have that, you know, and also like I can convince myself of all kinds of stuff when I'm by myself. And as soon as I bring somebody else in it who's sort of objective and outside of it, and you know, they're like, yeah, so don't. It really kind of like reels me back in, and I don't know that I'm necessarily like off my rocker a lot of times. I feel like God has given me a good sense of, you know, like these are good choices and these are bad choices, and a lot of time I can make them. But when things are really stressful and heated, and I'm like I feel like I'm lost, you know, like I need to be saying something to someone. Even if it's uncomfortable, especially if it's uncomfortable. I mean, but forging those relationships comes from taking chances and taking risks with certain people. Like there are certain people that I've tried that with that I won't ever try that with again. Yeah, I'm there with you. Yeah, you know, so I mean, it takes failure, you know, and you have to risk it sometimes because like you're worth it. Even if it's like, even if you get a response that's sarcastic and you know, like if I get a response that's sarcastic in a time like that, I'll probably reconsider next time. And I tend to, like, I know over time that I have used sarcasm as a coping mechanism, but there's certain groups of people, like certain text threads that I know like sarcasm isn't appropriate here. You know, like, so, and those are like the, like, hey man, I'm going down circling the drain here, you know, like I need some help, and I'll text those people, and we talk other times, but you know,
No, I think that's huge. Jeremy and I were just talking about that yesterday, just that finding your safe community, like people that know you well, that love God and love you well, that you could say stuff to, like really hard stuff, and like I don't know, I'm thinking like I'm going crazy, and these are the lies that I'm believing, this is what I want to do, and like you said, just having people that you can trust, and that is a risk, because I feel like I've been there, and mine has been like I dump it all out and I hand it to them. I just feel like they just put their hands down. It's like you hand them a basket or a basketball. It's like, dum, 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 dum. Okay, well, I won't be sharing it again. They don't want to. That was hard for them, or they didn't want to hear it, you know. So yeah, community is huge, and just bringing that darkness to light. It is true. Like once you bring it to light, you're like, at least for me, I'm like, oh, that's really not that big of a deal. But in my head, it seemed so real, it became my reality, like that lie over and over again. And then I remember one time with a friend, as soon as I said it, her eyeballs got big. I mean, she was there to help, but her eyeballs kept getting bigger. I'm like, I feel better.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Yeah.
You know, I just
I could
out
tell
loud.
by your reaction that
Yeah.
like this is nuts in my head.
Yeah.
But it's
So-
not in my head anymore.
Yeah, so I feel great. So thanks for taking that for me.
But Paul talks about, you know, like confession of like there's confession and then there's confessions of like methods and practices. You know, and Paul talks about the power of that, and I don't remember where, but like you can say to someone, you know what, I need prayer. And they're like, okay. But if you say to someone, look, man, I'm thinking about killing myself, or I mean that's a kind of an extreme example, but you know, I'm thinking about this, and this exactly, and this is the stuff that I'm doing, and this is the sick stuff that I have going on in my head. Like they know exactly how to pray for you there, and exactly how to love you through that. And like it does take you have to be willing to like number one handle your stinky laundry, and then like show it to somebody else. And confess the methods and the practices that are going on in your head. So I mean it takes, I think, some like faith that God's gonna love you through that. And He already knows, but like there's just something about like confessing it to someone and just airing it that really, number one, like takes the power out of it.
Yeah.
And then you know, like no one is able to like manage their sin effectively. You know, it's like you got this like the little pet, like, oh yeah, this is my pet. But you know, like it's a 160-pound rabid pit bull, and it's gonna eat you alive. You know, and so like you can't keep pets like that.
No.
I think.
No. I wouldn't suggest it.
No. And that's kind of a weird example, but.
That was a great. I mean, all I did is like, this is my little pet.
Oh yeah, it's fine. I just, you know, like a couple times a month, you know, whatever. But you know what that is? That's a habit. You know, like that. I mean, that you've made a practice. You know, and then when it's justified, you know what? It's fine. I don't do it that often. You know, and so does that too. You know, and
Worse.
you know, yeah. And so what we, you know, I'm reading this book in our small group. It's Prodigal God. It's Tim Keller, and it talks about, you know, the story in Luke where you know, like the prodigal son. Everybody knows that. But in that story, there are two prodigal sons. There's one who like is licentious and does his own thing, and the other who like who through his good works and through his virtue tries to get God under his thumb. You know, like tries to get the Father to do what he wants with his resources. You know, and so like in any given day, I can be one or the other. You know, and so it's a really kind of an interesting time because you know, through this wilderness, you know, I've been trying to, you know, like discern at what time should I be acting in faith, or what time should I just be like listening for direction, you know, or you know, like what time do I need to be walking and what time do I need to shut up and listen, you know, and I don't really, still don't think I've mastered that by any stretch, but it's been a very interesting kind of study to rereading this book and kind of comparing that to how the last 4 years have been going, and just realize that, man, like, what do I want? Like, who am I serving? And, you know, like, it is so, like, what happens if I lose everything? Like, I'm poor, then what? You know, I'm still rich because I have Jesus, right? And so, like, what do I serve? Like, who am I worshiping when I freak out about, oh my gosh, you know, like the house in Philadelphia has cost us all our savings for our whole life. Like, I don't understand, like, why that's happening, or what are you trying to teach me? Well, maybe, you know, like you're basing your standing on this performance-based theology, like you are what you create, or you are what you bring to the table, and like, who are you? You know, like, really. So that's been an interesting kind of lesson.
Yeah.
That's not what you asked me. You asked me something totally different.
No, I mean, I feel about this. I should wrap this up. No, it's good. Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah.
I feel like stories are powerful. So our prayer is that, people listening will just know that they're not alone. I feel like the enemy uses that, like, you're alone in this, or you've screwed up and no one has done it like that, or I don't know, he gets in our heads and just sharing all these stories. Our prayer is that, like, hey, you're not alone. Reach out, to God and to his people to help you in the season. So.
This stuff from Sunday, though, this Revelation 12 chapter, I thought that was really interesting how Ryan explained that. Like the enemy is real, and he's not like peeved. He's furious. Like he's like furious, and like like he hates us with the utmost intensity, and like if he were given permission to just kill us all, that's what would happen. But the thing is, he doesn't have permission to do that, and he can't unless he's given permission to do that, which is reassuring. I mean, if you read the first few chapters of Job, like Satan can't do anything without the leave of the Lord.
Yeah.
What are you doing? I'm walking back and forth on this earth. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So.
It's true. I think the verse that got me in that message was that he knows his time is limited.
Yeah.
And he's on a war path.
Yeah.
Like he's out to destroy, because he knows that he's got little time, so he's going to do whatever he can to take us out. And he's creative and deceptive, and he's going to use ways like a house in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Or, our marriage, Jeremy, and we shared that today actually on social media, just when the economy crashed, and, just so many things. And a lot of times we think it's going to look one way, and it's like, he's just creative. Like he doesn't play fair, and that was really good.
But if for a second that we think that he's not what he is, like in 1 Peter 5, Peter says, be watchful, be vigilant, because your enemy is prowling around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. And if we're not watchful, or if we're not standing firm in our faith, then we're going to be devoured. And it's not like we might be devoured, or no, we will be. I mean, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that I've been taught here is like, man, it's the second I'm like, yeah, I got this. I'm in charge of it. I'm gonna put my one butt cheek on God's throne because I can run this a little bit better than he can. Then like it's gonna just go sideways in a hurry because I'm not watchful, I'm not vigilant, I'm not standing firm on my faith, and the enemy is a roaring lion, and he's gonna seek to devour me.
Yeah.
So
it's so true.
Yeah, it's a really interesting kind of visual. That we got this Sunday, and I just applied it directly to like how the last 4 years have been going.
Yeah, I'll put that in the notes for this video so they can hear Ryan's message. It was really good. It's amazing. When he read it, I was like, "Ooh, this is a tough one to cover."
Yeah,
he did a great job.
Yeah,
It's like, it was fantastic.
Yeah, great red dragon.
Yeah. Jeremy and I were
Nice.
talking about that this morning. Like, man, that would be brutal to preach. We joke that Peter's like, "See you, Ryan, I'm going out of town. You preach this." Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.